Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you. This is such, can you hear me? No.
I think a little bit better
Is it
now.
on? I don't know.
Can you hear him?
Yes.
A little
I
bit.
was just
Speak up,
saying,
speak up.
this is, I can't tell you what to do. This is like what we call knock. It's just like, it makes your heart swell that this boy went and did this. And so I'm just so delighted to be here for him and with him, and hope you guys enjoyed the movie. And I don't know, it's just very special night.
Thank you.
Yeah. So why this movie? Why now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the making of this movie was really an incredible happening, and I think that it's always fun, the story behind the story. But I've been always wanting to make something that represented me, and when I started writing it felt that I was trying. I really love this filmmaker Paolo Sorrentino. I'm sure there's a ton of film students here, but I'm obsessed with him. And he made a movie called The Great Beauty, and I tried to mimic that, but you can't do that.
No.
And I think I sent out the script, and I had been writing and working for directors. I worked for James Gray and a ton of other people, which was incredible, and really wanted to make something, and was writing. And I sent the script to a producer friend, and she said, "This isn't you." And I think I put a lot of myself into it. I put a lot of imagination and a lot of magical realism, and those are things that I had, I think, since I was a young kid of Disney and even some Spielbergian stuff. So
Yeah, this was a boy always built like castles,
Yeah.
And
yeah,
he had always had a wonderful imagination, and
yeah,
wanted to somehow articulate it. I think he's certainly done it with this movie, and amazing thing to do this first time out of the box.
yeah.
What would you do different?
Oh, someone asked that in another screening. Honestly, I wouldn't do anything different.
Nothing.
Nothing. I mean, because I don't think you learn that way. I don't think if you're going before I started making the movie, one of the greatest quotes I saw was from Citizen Kane, which was Orson Welles talking about how he was able to do certain things, but he was so naive. He had never made a movie really in that way before, and I think for me, I gained so much from making this. I always say that working with Pacino, and I'm sure there was questions about that, but that was a different world and a different sort of, almost like I was zoned out and blacked out. But working with Charlie and Diana and these kids who are my age was like my film school, which, if you really made that as an independent movie, for me, those are the things that I think I would work on the most, but I wouldn't change because I got to learn so much about how to make a movie. And then the Pacino stuff was just, you're in this world with this, spirit, and that wasn't, that was something different. I think for me, the film school really came from, how do we make our days? How do we budget? How do we do these things the right way? And that came from working with all the young people.
Yeah, but I also wondered, because I wouldn't have had it, how you
Yeah.
had such good self-confidence to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
to get Al Pacino, and
Yeah.
you never seemed to me for a moment intimidated by the process or the
Yeah.
relationships.
No, and something you've always said about, confidence, and I think there's some sense that I just felt like I was gonna do it, whatever it was gonna be, and I hopefully was gonna do it good, and and I think that sort of just comes from soaking up life and and I think being comfortable with being rejected. I think that's something that I've learned is.
Rejected in which way?
I've sent out a number of emails and scripts and all sorts of things, and people passing, and for whatever reason that they wanted to pass, and I think you can get down and you can say, oh well, I'm never going to be good enough, I'm never going to be able to do this, but I think and I always really feel like I feel like I would have been able to pull this together just off of who I was, and not because you're my dad, and I think
I had nothing to do with
no, I know, and I think that's sort of an amazing thing for my confidence.
Well, I think
know?
for you, your personality to me is somebody who sort of rushes in where angels feel to tread, fair
Yeah.
to tread, and and sometimes you can flop that way, and sometimes you can succeed, and I
Yeah.
think you succeeded in a
Yeah.
wonderful way.
Yeah.
So that, I know you've been trying to, because you want, you obviously want to have the movie seen,
Yeah.
you know, and as many theatrical experience, hopefully. And,
Yeah.
so you've been doing this, gatherings, this college tour, which is
Yeah.
really a unique kind of thing.
Yeah, we've been going around. I really feel like even Al, to some respects in the film, has this kindred spirit, and he's an 83-year-old man, but he has a Shrek phone case. Like, you're talking about a man who's very, young in heart, and to me, the spirit of the film is about, being that young kid trying to figure out making a movie or figuring out life in general. And my fiance, I know she was in the bathroom. I don't know. Hi Melly. And I met my fiance sort of, in the same time, and obviously you guys saw in the credits. But I think there was a sense of like I figured out life. I always say making this movie, I feel like I maybe know how to make a movie, but on top of that, I figured out how to be a grown-up. I became a man. I really believe that in making this, and I think that was really important.
Well, you certainly won't lack for confidence next time.
Yeah, I hope so. But yes, the college tour, we're gonna go, I spoke at the University of Miami. We feel like in this day and age, you have to connect with people kind of where they are, especially to go see a film. And I really wanted to connect with young people. And there's such a kind of negative attitude towards the business today, in terms of and you guys, there's a lot of people here I'm sure want to be in film, but there's a lot of people around the country who don't understand that you can be an accountant and be in film. You can be a lawyer and be in film. There's so many different positions that it's not just you have to be an actor, director, or writer. And to me, I hope that with talking to young people, like, this business is fun, this business is amazing, it can change your life, and I think we have to hopefully find people that understand that there's still some amazing and beauty in this business, and so that's why we really wanted to go around the country showing.
I love your optimism.
Yeah, yeah.
I know it's pervasive right now that, there's only streaming and all that.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
It's wonderful to see that, what you put into this,
Yeah.
where you succeeded, where in some cases you might have failed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what are you going to do next?
I think for me, I really love finding these magical stories, and I think for me, I'm trying to find the right magical story, and there's a few things that I'm currently writing that play with magical realism and even further into, projects about outer space and all sorts of different worlds that can be created, and elevating that filmmaking aspect, and I hope I can show off something of that, and
Sure you
it
will.
would be a dream come true to even do it again. I think we, as filmmakers, we dream to go do the next one, and are blessed to be able to go do the next one, and so that would, if I'm able to direct anything again, it would be incredible.
No, you will. You will. I promise you. What? Just changing subjects a little bit. What do you think? What's your feelings about AI? Your particular generation?
Yeah, I think it's an incredible tool. I think it's something that I think filmmaking at its core is inherently human, and so you're never going to change that. I don't care how good it gets, in my opinion. This is me. What do I know? But to me, I think it can be such a valuable tool with VFX and all sorts of different elements of filmmaking that if we allow, the keys and even the grips and the electricians and everybody to be able to use it in a way that makes sense and allows for people, actually, I feel like creating more jobs and not taking away people's jobs, but can there be specialists in AI for a film set? And I think that's something, I do believe in the inherent, Guillermo del Toro, said fuck AI, but to me, I think, it's inevitable in some respects, and I do think there's some beauty to it if it can be used in the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what do you think you have to work on the most?
I think you have to be really smart in the way that you schedule. I think you have to be really smart in the way that you work on your script and understanding how you're going to meet those days. And I think, look, Al Pacino, and I can tell the story deeper, it's a long story, but he said yes in July of 2022. We were shooting in October of 2022. So we didn't have all the money to go make the movie. We had definitely not our crew or anything. So you're talking about maybe a month or less to really work on the script from a level of not just, because I've been working with Al for a long time, but with everybody else, you know, and he's only in it for probably 50%, maybe somewhere around there. And so I didn't get as much time as I wanted to work with the younger actors, but there's a beauty in that. You know, I learned that now, and I can say, you know, I can now know that that's something, you know, Sion Fincher, who said, make sure you have enough days. And I didn't process it, but now I know.
No, now you know. Yeah.
Now
So
I know.
next time, well, that'll be one thing you learn from this.
Yeah.
What about, do you think you needed to spend more time on the script, or you just enough time? What did you think?
A little bit more. I think if we had just scheduled and budgeted the script, you know, a little bit better, and you know, but it was a great thing for new producers as well, because the producers I worked with, this was one of their first movies as well. So we were all growing. It was a chaotic, wonderful experience that I wouldn't change for the world. And you know, what came out of it, I really feel like is a special sort of, it shows that. You know, I think one of the reasons why I wanted to come to film school is like, there's so much meta cinema in it. A young kid trying to figure it out in his short film, with me trying to figure this out in making this movie with this, one of the greatest, if not the greatest actor who's ever lived. And so, and that's what Billy Knight sort of represented. So.
I mean, I just loved, Alex 30 plus a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was me at one point, and that was 50 odd years ago. So
Yeah.
who knew where it was going to go? You know?
Yeah.
And I don't know what I knew then or didn't know, and
Yeah.
figured. But you have this great, as I said, self-confidence. It's unique, I think, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not obnoxious about it, and
No,
you're still willing to learn. I mean, I loved when all the jobs you did have where you were shadowing directors, you always would call and say, I learned this from whoever, like on House of Cards, whatever you were working on.
Yeah. Well, I think I also learned a lot from the experience of making movies. And you know, there's a couple schools that we've been to, you know, there's a lot of sort of, you know, like freshmen and sophomores who are sort of saying, you know, how do I want to get into this business? And I say, one, go make stuff, which you've always said, you know, if you want to be a writer, write. But two, you know, I think it's learning about all of it. And for me, what was so incredible was, you know, I was blessed to be able to go to incredible sets, but I think as I got older, I learned about this business and learned about craft and all that type of stuff, but I also just got older. Like I grew up, and I think making movies is really about who we are as humans and experiencing life and consuming that. And I think that's something that I would say is like, don't worry about, I rushed it, you know. I think there's times where I rushed it, and in terms of wanting to make something, and just allow that process to play out. Like if you're an actor, you know, don't worry about if you're 19, don't worry about who your manager is gonna be, or your agent, or any of that stuff. Like really worry about what's on the page, and if you get an audition, how you're gonna make a choice on that. Or if you're a director, how you're gonna set up, you know, what your setup's gonna be. Or if you're a writer, what are you gonna write? And so I think there's it says it in the movie, we're always rushing. And Al Pacino said movies today should just all be called rushed. And I think that, you know, there's something to that we all just need to really take a deep breath and understand it's gonna be okay, you know?
Well, I mean, I think one of the things I love about the movie is that there is such a joy about the process, what movies represent to many of us.
Yeah.
That fantasy world and also dream world.
Yeah.
And there is, as I say, there's such a joy to it.
Yeah.
And I think you're definitely going to continue to grow. So
Thank you.
you may look back upon this and say, this is what I did.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't think you'll ever feel badly about whatever spirit you had in this movie. You know? So whatever you end up doing.
Yeah, and I don't, again, that's why I say I wouldn't change anything for the world. I wouldn't. I mean, creative things, of course, you're always going to want to do certain things, but I wouldn't know that, right? Because it would be something else. And so that question, you know, which I've been asked a couple of times, that I would 100% say I would do it the same.
Yeah, that's what, I mean, you're right, that's what we quoted Orson Welles, that's what he said he couldn't know what he couldn't do.
Yeah, the naivete,
You know,
he just was,
and he had Greg Toland.
he was on a different level.
Yeah, and he had Greg Toland, who, you know, cinematographer, who agreed to do.
Yeah, and Corey Jeriak, who's he's an NYU alum, but he was wonderful. He's been Christopher Nolan's gaffer for, 30 years or so. So I really felt like he was a master of light here, and he just was really training me to sort of, take deep breaths and remember the main thing. And so I thank him completely, and everybody. I mean, our crew was wonderful. J.R. Hallbacher, who's one of the best costume designers in the business, and Ariana Nakata is an amazing production designer, and our composer Leslie Barber, who's done Manchester by the Sea and a number of movies. I mean, I got to go at the Air Studios in London, and that was like whoa, where they record Mission Impossibles and all sorts of stuff. So I got to learn so much from experienced people, with people that was producing it not as experienced, but we were learning together, actors who were experienced, not so experienced, cameos, all sorts of stuff. So.
You always, I mean, I remember going to the set the first time, and I said, and I was petrified for you.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, what is he doing? And everybody showed you nothing but the proper respect, and you had complete control of, 200 people or whatever, and I never knew you had that in you, and
Well,
maybe I should have recognized it. But I didn't.
Well, Henry's here. It's my nephew. But I think there's something. I even watched the Scorsese documentary today, and one of the things that I really loved was, and I even in the Spielberg documentary too, is they had so much fun, and we are so blessed, and I'm blessed to be able to do this for a living, and that people believed in me. Peter Morgan, a producer here, and people that really believed in the film and the script, and were willing to take that ride, with me. Josh and Kirk, who are my two partners from Amarillo, Texas, of all places, they believed in it, and they wanted to make this, and that's a blessing, and it's so fun. I just, to me, and obviously going to your sets, but there's nothing like being on a film set to me. There's nothing more magical, and I had so much fun, and I think people, and that's like Pacino. Pacino just has so much fun making movies, and he's a theater guy, but he loves this process of it. So
yes, people.
Yeah, we don't want to talk too long.
Shut up.
Is there any questions?
Anybody have a question? Yes, sir.
Where did Alex go when he was off in Dreamland with the
Yeah, I think, to me, I always found movies that we've actually, I think, not argued about it, we've maybe disagreed about it, but questions left unanswered. David Fincher's version of it would have been, the Fight Club, whatever that would have been. For me, throughout the editing process, I never wanted to answer the question, and I think there's always some twists and turns of where does they go, and it's a movie for me. I would hope that people go watch again, because there's little things that kind of put him back in where I think he is that editing booth. And there's posters in that editing booth in the beginning of the film that are at Billy's house. Every little trinket you see, there's a cowboy that's in his editing booth. There's lemons, and if you remember Pacino bouncing that lemon. So to me, he's there making a movie, and his imagination going to where he goes, and the logistics of it and all that. I think what we used to do as audience goers and movies that I love, we kind of said we don't care. But again, some people like other things, and they want those answers, tied up in a knot, and it's just not what I wanted to do with it. We could have. I just thought this might be more interesting, but
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
You're doing something unique with this that not a lot of other films doing, which is the short film competition.
Yeah.
For students. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we want to do with the film in terms of the marketing and distribution and stuff is getting, that sentiment of getting people interested in making movies for the beauty of making movies, not for some, just kind of like whatever it is, and obviously we're paying people if they win. But I think the element of it is to get a collection of people to want to be a part of making something. And so what we're doing is you can make a short film, submit it to the production company, and we're giving out $25,000 to the winner. And so that can be, there's no real rules or restrictions. Max has the actual rules and restrictions, but we really want collectively to people to feel like this movie is that beauty of making movies and get people. So it's not just like you're making a TikTok or you're making an Instagram. It's like you're putting something into it and you're putting your heart into it, and so that's what we're doing with the contest. So, and yeah, please submit.
Thank you. I had a question about, I mean, some of the soliloquies that Al has in this film are just so amazingly touching, and the depth, the emotional depth of a man who's lived through this Hollywood ringer, if you will.
Yeah.
Can I ask you
Yeah.
how you came up in the writing with this emotional depth, because it ties into not only Pacino's character but
Yeah.
also the young kids
Yeah.
who's in love
Creating him.
and neglecting his love and the creative love. How did
Yeah.
you come up with
No,
that?
that's a
Could you talk about
wonderful question? Yeah, and that's something that to me is when I talked about sort of that blacking out stage. But to me, that process, you know, you go 7-8 months with him just working on those soliloquies. He doesn't, for Al, I think for him, he really cared about what that was, you know, and the rest is left up to me. But that one, when he's bouncing the lemon and there's a moment, and I don't know if you guys would recognize it, but he kind of closes his eyes. He takes a beat. And to me, that was him looking back at his whole career. And to me, that was something that this was a man who, especially what he's talking about fame and you know, love and you know, and this is a guy who's been through so much in his career and so many performances and played so many different people. To me, at that point, he's Al Pacino, not Billy Knight anymore, but that's okay. And I think for me, that I was sitting there, and when he did that, I was bawling because it was so special. I think it was so special for him, and our relationship is very similar to this, which is insane. But I think that element of it, I think, was so incredibly special. And I think for him to look back and to be able to sort of think about all that was like, oh my God, Al Pacino is reading a speech that I wrote, and he's having a moment. And to me, that, like, when I had that and the chaos of making the movie, once I had that, I was like, I don't ever have to go make another movie ever. I do, I want to, but I had that, and that's something that I don't think you can take anything away from that, and that's really special. Thank you for asking that question too, because that
was
really
amazing.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, I have a question. How much of the script was improvised compared to how much was just like verbatim, word for word? And also, when actors go off script and they come up with their own phrases or their own lines, do you really hate that, or do you say, like, sometimes it fits perfectly and you think like, oh, well, I'm glad they came up with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Al and I, we had gone through so many months of rehearsing. He loves to rehearse. So not much of his actual stuff was improvised, oddly. You would think, you know, it's Pacino, he's gonna go. But with all the other actors, you guys have made movies, like, you know, when you're on the day, there's so many things going on. And again, you have to remember, this is my first film. Like, I'm learning how this all works. I've done short films, I've done some music videos, but to be able to learn that, the younger actors actually, you know, I allowed them to find things that I think were more improvised. So, you know, Charlie and Diane and I working together being like, well, does this work better? And then we're like, yeah, that works better. You know, so it wasn't much. I'm not saying we improvised the whole movie, but I think actually the improvisation came from the younger actors than it did with, and even like Sarafyan, who's not a traditional actor. She's been a model for a long time, and Angela Sarafyan, who is a traditional actress who's in Westworld, and she's the one by the pool, and she's an amazing actress. You know, we improvised a little bit there as well. So not a whole lot, but oddly enough, it was the younger actors and not so much Al, which was great. You know.
Right. You hear about some actors. I'm not sure if Robin Williams was one of them, but they come up with their own lines.
Yeah.
And they really
I love
add
it.
something to the story. You
Yeah.
know? Some of them are like straight to the
No, it's
point,
fluid. I mean, Truffaut would write three words on a page,
Right.
and he would go shoot the scene. I'm not that good, and so, you know, but there's something to that, you know, and yeah, I love it. I love it.
I wanted to ask, how long did the rehearsal process last?
How long? Hi, my name's Peter.
I think
How long did the rehearsal process last? And also, Can you tell us a little bit about the rehearsals? Like, what's your process?
Yeah, with Al, it was a rigorous process. We shot a table read early on because he wanted to see what the script kind of felt like and the world that was coming out of it. And so there was a lot of, and when we actually were between two actors, Cooper Hoffman was the other actor that was going to possibly be Charlie, be Alex. And Cooper was amazing, but I think Charlie just made a little bit more sense for this role. But we went through processes with Al and I and Charlie for a few weeks to really get to where we were. But again, you want to have more. And Pacino's, Al is the most precious about rehearsal. I mean, he comes from theater. This is a guy who, that's his thing, right? You gotta rehearse, you gotta do it, because you find more, and then you can improvise. When you've rehearsed that much, you can really, and so I wish I got more of that with Charlie and Diana to really find what it was, but again, in this day and age, it's tough to, I don't know how you feel with a lot of the actors. I think a lot of the movies that you make are a lot bigger, so you have more time, but with indie filmmaking, and a lot of the movies that you guys, I'm sure if you're in college, will be making, there's so much going on, and so do you have that time to be able to even do it? You hope to, and if you're good at scheduling and structuring, and that's where a good producer actually, really comes in and can help with that, and in terms of the timing, and so I hope that answered the question, but yeah, I want as much as you can possibly can, if that makes sense. Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for coming.